I am so incredibly excited to let you guys know about Growth Now Movement Live coming to Reading, Pennsylvania, May 30th to June 1st. That's going to feature some of my top guests, top performers, people who are willing to share their time, their information, and their knowledge with you to help you level up in all areas of your life. Go over to gnmlive.com and get your tickets today because it will sell out, guys. It is going to be an epic day of growing together and really helping each other reach our goals. I cannot wait to see you there. gnmlive.com to grab your tickets today. What is the secret to unlocking your full potential? What makes your idols any different than you? How do you become the person you've always wanted to be in life? This is where you get all of your questions answered. My name is Justin Shank, and I sit down with some of the most epic individuals who are changing the world with their actions in business and in life. We discuss how they did it, why they pushed themselves, and more importantly, how they were able to focus on continuous growth to achieve their dreams. Welcome to the Growth Now Movement. This week, I sit down with Marcus Aurelius Anderson.
All that stuff that you think is out of reach, it's in reach, but you have to actually commit to it. And most people don't commit. And because they're very vague about what they want. And a goal is only as attainable as it is specific.
Marcus suffered a severe spinal injury that left him paralyzed from the neck down. His life turned completely upside down, and after dying twice on the operating table, he was told he would never be able to walk or use his hands again. He realized in that moment that he had two choices. He could either be a victim or he can change his mindset. Having no other option, he began looking for any lessons to be learned from that injury. The greatest part of this news is, and you'll hear in this episode, is that Marcus now walks and has full use of all of his limbs. Plus, he's extremely physically fit, taking part in karate on a regular basis. He now speaks all over the world and teaches and writes to inspire others to actualize their full potential and achieve their goals and aspirations. I highly recommend you checking out his TEDx talk and grabbing a copy of his book. I think this episode will absolutely blow you guys away. Now, before we dive into it, just going to ask you guys one quick favor. Click that subscribe button because a lot of great things are coming soon. Some major announcements for Growth Now Movement Live, and you guys don't want to miss that. So click the subscribe button so you're the first to hear it. Now, without further ado, I give to you Marcus Anderson. Marcus, welcome to the Growth Now Movement, man.
Hey, man, how are you? Thanks for having me. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. We connected on Instagram a while back, and then I was at the New Media Summit, and you walked up to me. I was like, dude. And it was like this crazy thing because I had no idea you were going to be there. I didn't even know if you knew I was going to be there. I think it was just like, oh, hey, what's up? And we hit it off, and we've talked since then, and I'm just really excited to dive into this conversation. But I just want to point out one thing. What's your middle name?
Aurelius, yes.
Is that real?
It's real.
That's
it.
That's so crazy. And dude, I would own the shit out of that. I would live on that forever. Like I have the worst last name of all time because of the spelling. And so it's like, all right, how do I say it? Is it Shenik? Is it Schneck? And I'm just like, it's Shank. I know it's not spelled that way. Can somebody please get it right for once in my life? And it's just unreal. So if I had a cool middle name, I'd own the shit out of it. But man, I'm just really excited about this conversation because your story is really inspiring. Some of the things you've been through and some of the things that you're doing now is just really, really cool. But why don't you real briefly just introduce yourself to my audience and just tell them who Marcus is?
Absolutely, man. So, Marcus Aurelius Anderson. I'm a TEDx speaker, keynote speaker, author of the book, The Gift of Adversity, Overcoming Paralysis and Pain to Find Purpose. I'm a coach. I coach executives, CEOs, leaders, and I coach a lot of coaches now too. It seems like coaches need just as much coaching as everybody else. And that's what I do. I'm trying to do as much as I can to give back now. I've been through some stuff, and if I can give anybody even a nugget of what I've learned without them having to go through what I went through, then everybody wins,
Yeah, for sure. And because of scheduling, it's taken a while to get you on here, but I think it's crazy because your story is overcoming adversity. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's really about growing into whatever human being you're supposed to grow into. So let's talk about the basis of the book and why you are the go-to guy about overcoming things like that.
Absolutely. I I joined the military at the ripe old age of 38 years old, which, just a quick background, because people are like, well, why the hell did you do that? And I was like, it's interesting. That's exactly what my recruiter said. I was in chiropractic school in Atlanta. I was married and I was trying to bartend as well. So I'm taking 25 hours of chiropractic level courses, doctorate level stuff, bartending 40 hours a week. And I'm trying to put myself through school to prepare my life for what I'm going to have with my wife, have kids, all that stuff. And in the process of focusing on those two things, I didn't focus on my marriage, and my marriage dissolved, and we got divorced. Not long after that, my great uncle, who was a really big role model for me when I was a kid, he passed away. He was in Special Forces, Green Beret, Vietnam, and he and my father, along with martial arts, really kind of implemented the ethos and the ideals that I have today. That's what made me what I am today. So I was just like crushed by that. It was just a 1-2 punch that just knocked me down.
Yeah.
Didn't want to go to school, didn't have any desire, didn't know what my why was. And after I went to my great uncle's funeral, I was pretty good until they played taps, and then I just lost it. And they had, 21 gun salute, all this regalia. And I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to serve. I'll see if I can get in. So I went to the recruiter the next day or that Monday and asked how old you could be to get in. He's like, 35 is the limit. I turned around. He's like, wait, let's talk. And kind of told him why I wanted to do it. And he asked if I was smart. And I was like, well, I'm joining the military, so probably not. No, but no, he had me take an ASVAB. He had me take a PT test. I crushed both of those. He's like, I'll sign a waiver if you want to go. So not 6 months later, I'm getting off a bus, getting yelled at in infantry school. So living the dream.
Yeah, right.
So, but I absolutely needed that. I needed something to spur me on. I needed something to give me a push. When I got stationed in upstate New York, not long before I turned 40 years old, while preparing to deploy with the Army, I suffered a severe spinal injury that left me paralyzed. And they sent me down to the hospital. I died on the operating table twice. And after the operation, they were able to save my life, but they said, listen, you're going to be paralyzed for the rest of your life. So
wow,
try to wrap your head around it. And it was just, I'm still trying to figure out what happened over the last 48 hours, let alone trying to figure out what do I do now with the rest of my life. I've given everything I have, turned 40 years old in a bed, divorced, broke, wondering what the hell I'm going to do.
Yeah. And so I think the crazy part about your story and from when the first time you told me, first of all, I don't think I knew that you were 38 when you went into the military. I don't know if I knew that part, which is, it's just mind blowing in itself. But it's almost like a rock bottom and then another rock bottom. And that's something that's really interesting and especially to see you now and the things that you're doing and the fact that you can walk and do martial arts and you're very physically fit, but we'll get into all that. But I think the thing is, like, when you hit that second rock bottom, what were you thinking in that moment? I know you said, I didn't know what was happening in the last 48 hours, let alone the next whatever, but what was that moment like when you woke up and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, and just like you said, I thought that the divorce and that death in the family was like my big rock bottom. Bruce Lee said there are no limits, there are only plateaus, and we had to push through those. And in my case, unfortunately, the plateau was, a negative one. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was angry. I was really mad. I was mad at everyone around me, but the person I was the maddest at was myself, because I realized that it was like the universe had just bitch slapped me and said, listen, we've given you 40 years. We've given you all this talent, all this time, and you haven't done anything with it. So we're taking it from you. So I felt very, very angry. And I felt like I say in my TEDx talk, it's like I wasted so much time, talent, and potential thinking that I would always have time, talent, and potential. And the reality is we don't.
Yeah.
So if you want to do something, do it now, right?
Yeah, that's such a unique way to think about it. Like life has given you 40 years to do something with, and you haven't. So we're just going to take it from you. But I think what life was doing to you at the age of 40, they said you're ready, and now we're giving to you what you need. And I think that's really the mindset shift that people don't quite understand. And we were just talking before this interview, because I'm interviewing on the day that Ed Milet's episode aired. And he talks about, and I've talked about from stages, like, life happens for you, not to you. So what I'm getting at here is, like, obviously this has created an opportunity for you. What opportunity did you learn from this event or these two events back to back?
Man, I've learned that myself and everyone around us, most of us really have no idea what the hell we really want. we think we do. And we're like, oh, I want this, but we're very vague. And I want to be happy. I want to be successful. And what does that really mean? For me, when I was lying in that bed and I couldn't move, I had to think a lot. And the thing that I realized what I finally wanted to do. And the damnable shame was that I felt like I wasn't ever going to get to do it. And the idea was I figured out quickly what was really important and what wasn't. I realized that some of the stuff I was doing was to impress other people or because I thought other people would be, oh, that's pretty badass. It's like, no.
Yeah.
So you had to figure out what you want to do because, in the end, it's pretty much yourself that you have to look at in the mirror. And that's the person that you have to kind of answer to when it's all said and done. So once I realized that the stuff I wanted to do, I needed to act on it. And that's what I promised myself. If I ever had the chance to walk again, I would never hesitate. I would redouble my efforts. All the stuff that wasn't important, I would just cut it away. If it's superfluous and it doesn't serve me or serve others the way I think that it should, I just let it go because I don't have time now. I've got a lot of urgency to get the stuff done that I want to get done.
Yeah. So, I mean, here you are and you're paralyzed. Were you like, what part of you was paralyzed?
From my neck down.
Holy crap. So
yeah.
I can't imagine the fear. Because that's the only word I can think of. Like how scared I would be just not being able to move. The whole 40 years of life, you're fine. You can move. You're physically able. You're in martial arts, all these other things. And then all of a sudden you can't move. What was that feeling like when you were just laying there? Did you want to give up?
Yeah, I was literally suicidal. Like I wanted to take my own life, but again, life happens for us and not to us. So I'm happy that I wasn't able to act on it. But it's real different because I hear people say, well, because I talk about urgency and priorities and what you really want to do. And I've had people say, well, if I'm going to die anyway, it doesn't matter if I get what I want to get done or not. But the reality is it could happen the way it did to me. So at 40 years old, I wasn't dead, but physically I wasn't able to move. So lying there in a bed thinking that you may be like this for the next 40 years of your life. Oh, the next last part of your life is going to be like this. If you start thinking like that, it'll light a fire under your ass real fast because you realize that all the stuff you were wanting to do, you don't really have that opportunity that you think you do. All that stuff that you think is out of reach, it's in reach, but you have to actually commit to it. And most people don't commit. And because they're very vague about what they want. And a goal is only as attainable as it is specific. So if you just had this vague notion, just like you with your podcast, right? Like when you started putting the pedal down and you were pushing and you're climbing the charts the way you are, you weren't just hoping that you would do a little bit better, were you? No, you were trying to reach as high as you could. And look at you now, man, you're killing it.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Because I think when you don't have that end goal in mind, and not only should it be specific, it should also cater to who you are as an individual, right? So you and I talked about this, how I'm not money driven whatsoever. But I do know that money needs to happen for me to impact as many lives as I possibly can. So I was like, well, how do I set goals to attain them and so on and so forth? So what was the switch in your head when you were laying there saying, you know what, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do everything in my capacity to step forward and literally and figuratively, start walking again, get healthy, and then start to chase your dreams. So what was the switch?
It was rough because there were about almost 4 months where I was just angry and I was pissed off. And I've been doing martial arts, since I was 11. I've, all that philosophy is built into you, that stoicism, that Taoism, that Zen, that warrior spirit.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even trying to think about that. I was just like, man, this sucks. I hate my life. I hate everyone around me. And then eventually I just woke up one morning and realized it's not making me any better. Being angry isn't helping me at all. Being the way I am around these other people is not helping me at all. So in martial arts, they talk about that. There's a lot of stuff that we cannot overcome, that we can't push against. Or if we push against it, it's just going to, crush us. So I realized, okay, well, maybe I need to go with this. Maybe instead of resisting this, I need to see where it's pushing me in a direction. I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to go with it. So I went with it without expectation. And people say, the opposite of hate is love. But for me, the opposite of hate was gratitude. So I tried to find the thing. It's like, what can I be grateful for in this? And I couldn't think of anything. And then I realized that, okay, if this had happened while I was deployed, because I wasn't deployed, we were preparing to deploy. If this had happened while I was in country, I might have gotten other people killed. I might have gotten people on my team killed. I might have gotten a helicopter shot down. So I literally was able to count down to where there were probably a dozen people that might have been hurt if I'd have been hurt overseas. So I was like, actually, that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And once I had that little bit, I was like, and that was my foundation. And then I just kept trying to build from there and find more and more things.
Yeah, that's the greatest example of focusing on the positive. Even if like finding the positive out of the potential negative, or how could it have been worse? Like, cause I think sometimes, and I think I've been there too, where like you're sitting in your own shit, I like to say, and you look around your life and you're like, what the hell? Right? And you have to find the most minuscule positive, even if it's insanely like, what if scenario, right? Even though they say don't live in the what ifs, but if the what if is your positive, live in that scenario, right?
Yes.
So here you are, you make that switch. Like, this could have been a lot worse. Now it's my duty to step forward and really create this magic. And so what was your like calling to get into like the speaking and the coaching? Was it the book first and then everything kind of organically happened from there? Like, how did it happen?
It was crazy because once I got in the military, I went back kind of to my first love, which was martial arts. And I've always loved teaching. And, if you're a teacher, you're always kind of a student. And what happened was I just wanted to try to get some of my physicality back. And teaching was a great way to do that. And then I had a person he was very well off, lots of real estate, multimillionaire many times over. And he was a private student of mine. And he was asking, we would go have lunch. And I was always able to take the things that we were learning from a philosophical level and help him apply it to his business. And finally he was like, so how much would I coach you for that? And I didn't know what he was talking about. And he had coaches that he was spending a lot of money on to help him with stuff. And he said, you're giving me more information what these guys are, how about you just be my coach? I was like, okay. And that kind of fell into my lap. And then that gave me other clientele. And then he would tell other people about my story and people were just blown away by it. And so finally I was like, okay, well, I need to start making a little bit of noise about this if I can help motivate and inspire people. Started writing the book, and then I'd applied to a few TEDx talks and I was turned down. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to focus on the book more. And then about halfway through my book, I got the opportunity to speak at TEDx in Columbia, Missouri. And so then it was like, okay, I need to focus on this and create what I want for that and make sure that because you only get one chance to do that, well. Right. So you want to go up there and make the biggest impact that you can. So I was doing that while I was writing the book, and then the talk came out, the book came out, and then the speaking and the coaching just kind of exploded from there. So
yeah, it's like my story with what I'm doing with podcasts is very similar. Like somebody was like, hey, can you teach me how to do that? Or can you help me, hop on a call? And I did that, and they go, and that after the call, I want to keep going. And I was like, yeah, we can keep talking. And they're like, how much? And I was like, wait, what? And it really kind of created the snowball effect, because I think that when you live in a world of giving and your goal is to really just truly help and give, you'll start to receive the things that you're supposed to receive. You'll work with the people you're supposed to work with. You'll do all these things, right? So as this snowball effect is happening for you, like now all of a sudden you have a vision. You're like, okay, I need to impact more lives. So what are you striving for now? Like before it was, I'm not really sure. Let me get in the military. Then, oh my God, I need to walk again. And now you've almost got this ball rolling. What are you shooting for now? What's your drive?
The biggest drive is to empower others to, reach their highest potential. And that's a little vague. So what I want to say is, by teaching other coaches, by teaching other consultants how to reach more people and how to make a genuine impact on their lives. Because if I just think about coaching one person, that's great. But I had to think about how is that going to affect the people around them? That's why I love coaching like CEOs and leaders and, C-suite people, because I know that if I can impact that person and get them under my wing for a few months or a year, that way everything that I do trickles down that much further down to them and has more of an impact. And it impacts not only them and their clients, but, their family, the people that they're around. So there's a big, big influence if people look at it like that. And that's the big one for me, is to help others. And again, to help them overcome stuff. I mean, I get messages all the time from my TEDx or my book that, and it's very complimentary and it's very edifying, but it keeps you going. It keeps you motivated for sure.
Yeah, I love that. So, when I'm thinking about all this, right, and I was like, okay, so here's this guy who's really overcome a ton of adversity, who was like, I want to give up on all, and now he's living the dream. What kind of stuff, like, what questions do you tell your clients to ask themselves when they feel like they need to tap out? So, a lot of people that listen to this show, they're people that are really kind of looking to rise up from the ashes, right? So what would you say to the people listening right now? Like, what can I start asking myself to see the positives or start to find my purpose?
That's a great question. There's a lot of different ways we can go with it. What I talk about when I speak, or in my book, I mention it, but they're just 3 questions and they're real simple. But if you take them seriously, it'll give you a pretty good idea of your direction. And I just say, if you woke up tomorrow paralyzed from the neck down, what do you wish you would have accomplished with your life? And that, if you think of it, it'll kick you in the ass a little bit. And then ask yourself, what would you regret? What sort of ideas would you harbor that you wish you would have acted on? And then at the very last one is just ask yourself, okay, and if by some miracle I was able to walk again, how would I begin to live my life differently immediately? And that's the big one. And once you start thinking about that, it helps reframe everything you do in your life. It makes you eat differently. It makes you work out more. It makes you listen more. It makes you care more about everything that's actually worth caring about.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I just want to take it a step forward, right? And say, when I take a look at that, okay, I'm going to ask myself those questions. I'm feeling okay. And then I go and I make moves, and all of a sudden I'm at a completely better and beautiful place. And I look back from where I came from and I go, this feels good. How do I keep pushing myself? Like, how do I not then again become complacent? Because a lot of times it's complacency that sets us into that rock bottom. But how do I then not again become complacent? And continue to push myself? What are the things you do to continue? Let's ask you this. Like, what do you do to hold yourself accountable to continue to level up?
I look at the people around me and I look at what more I can do for them. I look at how many more people I can affect. I look at how much more impact I can make with this conversation, with the conversation I have with others, with a speaking engagement, for example, as well. So, and then understanding that there's so many other people. I mean, we were talking about Ed Milet, right? I mean, that guy is amazing, and he hangs around, Tony Robbins, all these amazing people too. Those are the ways that you can see it's like these people are really technically, though they're amazing at what they've done, they're still human. So what they're attaining are something that we can do as well. So you need to just continually ask more of yourself, because there's always another level that we can go up. Like I mentioned the Bruce Lee comment before, and that's the idea. So you have to be grateful for what you have, but you also have to understand that there's more that you can ask from yourself. You can always click it up a notch.
Yeah.
The 3 things I tell my clients are, especially when we're in like a productivity kind of mode, is ask yourself, okay, what are the primary things that I really need to do now? Because most people get caught up in a bunch of shiny stuff. They get caught up in social media or rabbit holes, and that's fine and it's fun. But if you do that all the time, you're wasting a lot of energy and mental capacity. If you're thinking about what needs to be done and what the primary objective is, that'll keep you on focus. The second thing you ask yourself is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to those goals that I want to attain?
I love that.
And then, because if you're not, now you can take yourself accountable and you can click yourself back in and say, okay. And the thing is on that one is you don't judge yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be like, man, I fell off I got distracted again and blah, blah, blah. Because if you don't, that will become a mental spiral and it becomes negative and it doesn't help you. The idea is like, I'm not where I need to be. I'm going to get back on that. I'm going to keep moving forward. And then the last thing is just to be present in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you take the weekend off, be present and enjoy yourself while you're there. Don't, have your head in your phone if you can avoid it or whatever. And those are things that keep you active and they keep you on the right track, as opposed to constantly chasing, like I said, the next shiny thing or wondering what you should be doing to try to keep up with the Joneses, because the reality is you never will. You got to take care of you and do what you need to do. So.
Yeah, I love that. Just about leveling yourself up and not worrying about what other people are doing. I just added like this Friday, like 2 to 5 minute, like just me talking. And I just talked about like, stop worrying about what other people have. Like they have their own shit too. So often we look at their lives and we think, oh my God, it's so great. His wife's so attractive. He's got the killer car, that damn house. He's got 6-pack. I definitely don't. Right. And so like, this is like, I think sometimes we bury ourselves in a hole and then we just sit there and we go, woe is me. instead of going like, hey man, my life's pretty freaking cool. Like I was texting Ed Milet and Justin Wren today. Like that's legit, right? So like my life is pretty freaking cool. And you need to focus in on the things that like really kind of level you up and take you to the next level. So I love all that stuff. And so obviously you've listened to my show, so you kind of know what question's coming next, but I interview some really successful people and I've been fortunate enough to do that. And you're somebody who's really has a great success story. You've really done some great things from where you came from. So my question for you is, what's your definition of success? And what are 3 things you make sure you do every day to ensure that success?
Success to me is being able to operate at my highest capacity. And that means I don't allow myself to get tripped up on, again, the opinion of others, because you can't satisfy everybody else around you. And you'd be surprised at how many times people allow that to influence what they do, their behavior, their thoughts. And lots of times it limits what we do. So success is doing what I want to do when I want to do it, basically. And that's the way I look at it. That's what success is. Freedom, essentially, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And the things that I'm always doing is, for me, again, especially because of what happened to me physically, I'm always, the first thing I do is I get up and I do some sort of workout, something to keep me going, because that to me is what dictates the pace of the rest of my day. If I go out and I can do some sort of workout, or even if I go for a walk, that primes the pump and that gets me where I need to be. That gets the physicality going. And that's what makes you're going to be better cognitively from there on out. Your mentality is going to be a lot more driven. And once you've done that, you know that no matter what else happens that day, no matter what else it is, whatever fires you're putting out, you got to work on it. And that's the big deal. And you don't have to kill yourself, but you need to do something physically to get yourself on that right level. I fast twice a week. That's something else that I do that consistently keeps me mentally disciplined, because when your stomach's growling and you have to tell yourself, no, I decide when I eat, not my stomach. My mind decides when I eat. And then I practice gratitude, but I do it a little bit differently. Everyone wants to be grateful for the shit that they like, but they don't want to be grateful for the bad stuff, right? So I learned to find the things to be grateful for that other people don't see. I find the beauty in it. So the guy cuts me off in traffic and gives me the bird. I'm thankful for that. If the weather's outside and it's bad and I got to go for a walk, I'm thankful for that. I smile about it. If you have a person that's, upset at you at the grocery store because they think you cut in front of them, I just kind of smile and step aside and let them get in front of me, because if you can find the beauty in the stuff that other people cannot, you're bulletproof. Because no matter, it's easy to be grateful
gold.
about the stuff you love, right? But the stuff that everybody else doesn't see, that's it. And if you don't do it, what happens is, if you already have that in your system, that way, no matter what happens, it doesn't matter. You're good. But yeah, a lot of people can't seem to find that. So I hope that if somebody can take something from it.
Yeah, man, that last one was absolute gold. And I think it's so true. Like, because we worry so much about the stupid little shit that we have no control over. And then all of a sudden, start that downward spiral that you were talking about earlier. I think sometimes for a lot of people, and you strike me as somebody like this, and so correct me if I'm wrong. And I'll edit it out so I don't ever sound wrong on my own podcast. Just kidding, by the way. I'm wrong all the time. But you strike me as somebody that fear motivates them. And a lot of times fear paralyzes people. And that pun was not intended, but we can say that it was. What are you afraid of right now that's pushing you to continue to go?
You're absolutely right. Fear is a hell of a motivator. What scares me now is that I won't be able to impact as many people as I possibly can. The thing that scares me now is that I can't reach enough people. So that's what drives me. Fear can burn through you like wildfire. It can do a lot of stuff. But to me, adversity now is my compass. It's my indication that I'm on the right path, because adversity only guards the stuff that's worth having, right? And it's not going to let you by unless you do the work, unless you push past it, unless you're worthy of it. And what happens is it becomes a habit. If you face any kind of adversity and all of a sudden you push back against it and then you give up, that's the habit. And now it takes less and less to defeat you. And then before you know it, it becomes this self-perpetuating cycle of, the victim mentality. And people like you said, people love hearing their own story. They love buying their own bullshit, and they love being caught up in it. And they can't wait to get on social media and tell everybody how bad their Monday was. Oh, my life sucks. And they live in a house and they have water and they have food and they have people that love them, and they're looking for the bad shit. So what I'm saying is, accentuate the positive, because there's always going to be positive. And if you make that a habit, you're good. it can go the other direction too, where if you constantly look for the bad stuff, it will be there. So be careful what you're looking for, because what you accentuate is what will continue.
Awesome, man. I love all that. So obviously I wrap up all these episodes with 5 rapid fire questions. But before we get there, where do people find you? Where do they get your book? By the way, we were talking about Ed Milet earlier. Ed Milet gave your book a shout out. So everybody's going to want to go get that book. So where do people find you? Where do they get your stuff?
And thanks to Ed for that. I mean, he was so magnanimous just doing that for me. I'm so humbled by that. You can find my book on Amazon.com. It's The Gift of Adversity. You can get the physical book, or you can get it in the Kindle version. You can find me on MarcusAureliusAnderson.com if you want to book me to speak or hire me as a coach. I'm working with JV Crum III right now with a coaching and consulting boot camp. If you're interested in that, you can go to Conscious Millionaire, and you can find my TEDx talk for free on YouTube, The Gift of Adversity. And if you want to find me on any social, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all under Marcus Aurelius Anderson. That's my handle. So
awesome,
that's
man.
really fun, man.
Love it so much. So we get into the 5 rapid fire questions. Some are fun, some are serious. I just ask you this. Answer within one word, at the most 1 sentence. Are you ready?
Got it.
All right. So the first one is, what's your favorite smell?
Honeysuckle in the summer.
That's a good smell. That's a good smell. What is the most embarrassing song that you work out to and people look at you and think it's some hard song, but it's really not?
Wow. Probably something horrible like Whitesnake from when I was in like junior high or something.
That's hilarious. That's great. If you could have dinner with one person, living or dead, who would it be?
Bruce Lee.
Nice. I like that. At the end of your life, if you could only be remembered for one sentence, what would that sentence be?
He gave everything that he possessed.
Wow. That's powerful. And obviously this podcast is called The Growth Now Movement. So I wrap up every single episode with this one question, and that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
I think we've talked about it. But that gift of adversity, having that moment, realizing that it was actually there for me, that was it.
Awesome, man. So, Marcus, I just want to wrap up by saying this to you. You had mentioned earlier one of your fears, and that was not being able to impact as many lives as you're supposed to, but you're doing everything that you need to be doing. You're on the path to do that, and I guarantee you that you will reach 10 times the amount of people, because I believe in your message, I believe in your delivery, and I believe in who the people that you partner with. So just thank you so much, man, for coming on the show, sharing your knowledge and wisdom with my audience, and of course, I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, and I really appreciate you, man.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.